Hello and welcome back. In this video, we will focus on creating users and setting up user permissions. First, let me explain why it is important to add multiple users and adjust their permissions according to the type of employee. We highly recommend that each of your employees has their own separate account with separate login details. The first reason for this is the security of your profile. If you fire an employee, you won't have to create a new password for your master account. You just delete the user. The second reason is the user activity module. Each action made in our system is recorded in this module, so you can easily find out who did what, who changed the prices, who deleted reservations, who issued documents, etc. This is very important for hotel management or the head of reception. If you only have one user, you won't be able to keep track of anything or hold your employees accountable for their actions. The third reason is cashbook closures. You always record who is transferring cash to the next shift and what the cash balance was. The fourth and last reason is the fact that you can set different permissions in the system for each user. If you're having trust issues with your temporary workers, let's say a new hire who only listens to Shakira and never clips his fingernails, you can deny them access to some sections of the system and only allow the modules and actions which are necessary for their job. User settings are divided into two sections which are connected. These sections are roles and users list. Let's say you have two employees, Mark and Anna, and they've been assigned roles which have different sets of user permissions. Anna's role is manager, so she has access to all parts of the system. Mark is only a lowly receptionist, so he has limited permissions. First, we will create the roles which will be assigned to users we create later. You go to Settings, Users, and Role. You have to decide how many roles will be necessary for your accommodation. The most common roles are manager with all permissions, reception with limited permissions, and part-time reception with only basic permissions allowed. A new role can be created using this button. The settings section is separated into 4 tabs. In the first one, you name the role, for example, reception. Then we have 2 important sections, modules and operation. Basically, in modules you set where the role has access, and in operation you set what actions the user can do in the available modules. Let's start with modules. This section contains a list of all modules in our system. The list more or less copies the red menu above. You need to select which section will be available for the role and assigned user. Each section can have subsections, and you can set the permissions for them like this. You can also use our predefined role templates if you want to save some time. There is a manager option with full access and a reception option with only the permissions we thought necessary for the job. You can, of course, add other modules for the role if needed. Now switch to the third tab, Operation. This tab contains 3 subsections, Reservation, Accounting Documents, and Other. You can also use predefined roles here, and a selected group of permissions will be automatically added. Here you can set the permissions in much more detail. It's simple. In the reservation section, we have actions on the vertical axis and reservation statuses on the horizontal axis. Almost all actions that can be performed in the system are connected with reservations. So in this case, you can, for example, deny reception from deleting reservations, or not allow this role to work with canceled reservations, among other options. One of the most used options is setting permissions for adding items. You can choose to only allow preset services or stock items to be added, so reception cannot create their own and add them to room account. Another option that is often used is not allowing the room account VAT rate to be changed. This option is hidden under room account item editing. If you really want to be strict, you can also take a look at this. Change reservation status to. This will allow you to set which reservation can be changed to which status. So you can set that confirmed reservations can only be switched to checked in, canceled, no-show, etc. Or you can set that checked in reservations can only be changed to checked out. The accounting documents section is very similar. The only difference is the vertical axis has actions which can be performed in the documents section, and the horizontal axis has a list with document types. Here you can prevent your employees from deleting already issued documents, and you can also limit their permissions so they cannot change the numbers of the document, the issue date, or do anything with the fiscalization of the document. You can also prevent your reception from adding their own items in a document, similar to the reservation tab. This section is often used to stop reception from creating credit notes, and also not let them save a document without payment, because only in the case of a bank transfer do you not receive payment immediately. The last section is Other. The actions here are the remaining things that you can do in the system. Mostly it's adding, editing, and erasing records like foreign guest register, list of services, stock items, etc. You should definitely not allow your reception to have access to actions in your price list, like changing prices, payment methods, etc. Also, don't allow them to delete closures, because closures are created so you can monitor cash movement at reception. Lastly, you should decide if it's necessary for reception to be able to delete things like companies and guests from your database. It might not be. Who knows what they'll do? I sure don't. The last section allows you to limit access to the system only to certain IP addresses. This tool might be helpful if you want to prevent your employees from logging in at home, because people who bring their work home with them should not be trusted. Be careful with this section. You should have a static IP address set for your accommodation Wi-Fi connection. If your IP address is dynamic, nobody will be able to log in after this is set, not even from the hotel. So now we have a role created. Each role can still be edited and erased using these icons. So let's move on to the second part of the settings, users. The importance of creating an account for each employee was mentioned in the beginning of this video. So let's pull up the user list and create some new users. You can add a new user using this button. You need to set up a username and email. The email will be used for logging into the system. It doesn't need to be a real email address. It just needs to be an email form. So it can be something like shakira@hotmail.com, which the user will use to log in. The only possible problem with a fake email address is if the user forgets his password and needs to reset it, because a new password will be sent to this fake address. It's not a big problem, however, because a manager with user permissions will be able to change the password. You then select the language of the interface for the user, which can also be changed later. Then select the role for the user and enter the password twice. The password must be a total of at least 6 characters, and have at least one number and one letter. The last thing, if you have multiple hotels in a group, you can set if the user has access to all profiles. If you have only one accommodation facility, it will be selected automatically. Now save the window, and you have a new user created for your employee, who may or may not be reliable. Always keep this in mind. Users can be edited or deleted using these icons. And that's all, folks. Good luck with your employees.